welcome back to this week's episode of the Wiseworks podcast. This is episode 82. This is a little bit of a special episode. We've had a couple guests on the Midnight Special before, but this is our first actual guest on the Wiseworks podcast
the YouTube channel. Yeah.
So, who do we have with us, Joseph?
Well, who we have today is an individual called named Natalie. She is a filmmaker, an indie filmmaker. She does a lot of video production. And I'll have her introduce herself in a minute. But I know her from her helping out on a few projects that we've done. She was there for
Dying of the Leaves.
1 or 2 days of production on Dying of the Leaves. She helped us. She was the primary cinematographer on the hike that we did. And so I've worked with her a number of times. But anyways, Natalie, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Hello, Internet and Wiseworks audience. My name is Natalie, and I'm an independent filmmaker in Nashville nowadays. Since last time we spoke, I guess, was when I still lived in Columbia, so that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah.
People who are wondering.
But yeah, so I take a lot of interest in screenwriting and directing. Lately on a lot of productions that, like, over the past year and whatnot, I've done a lot of assistant directing, which is essentially, for those of you who don't know, is being a schedule Nazi. And and I've also done a lot of help on camera crew, running slate and stuff like that. And right now I actually edit videos for CinemaSins and TV Sins on YouTube, so that's really fun.
Awesome. What is that? Explain a little bit what CinemaSins?
Oh yeah, so they're a really they're one of the more popular movie sinning, that's what we're gonna call it, movie sinning channel. They basically point out each and every flaw of every single movie, whether it's good or bad.
I see.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So if you're a movie buff, check it out.
Do you guys do like Hollywood films, or the people involved, do they do Hollywood films or do they do like indie films?
Blockbusters, things you've never heard of. Lots of blockbusters, lots of bad superhero movies.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I mean, I don't know if I've had this conversation with you. Joshua and I differ a good bit on the whole superhero film genre. I mean, he kind of likes it in some fashions, and I'm way critical of it.
This is kind of interesting question because being so into films, and it seems like that you really enjoyed just the genre of entertainment when it comes to films. What is your thought on anime, just very briefly?
Yeah, we just did an episode on this. What do you think about anime?
I love anime.
Okay.
What is it? Everybody that's on this show loves anime.
But I should actually be more specific. I love good anime.
Gotcha.
And I know that that's kind of vague.
Okay. This is what our friends, we got educated on a whole episode about anime. Apparently, it's extremely saturated. There's a whole bunch of it, and it's hard to find the good anime, but everyone always says the good anime. Is there legit bad anime that people like, or is it just preference?
I think it's probably a matter of preference. But typically if you hear the same names being thrown around amongst a group of people, that probably means it's a good one.
Okay, what do you think of Avatar? I know it's not a Japanese anime, but
I don't consider Avatar to be anime, but I love it.
Okay, so you don't consider it to be, but it's great.
Yes. It is definitely inspired by anime, but I do not think that it itself is anime.
That's kind of what we've heard.
Yeah, she definitely is into anime, just by the way she's talking about it.
I mean, we won't talk about it much here, but Joshua has been watching Avatar, and he seems to really like it as well.
Oh, it's such a good show. It's one of the best out there.
Okay, so elaborate on this as much as you'd like. When it comes to filmmaking, tell us specifically what aspect of filmmaking. I know you said you like screenwriting and you like directing. What is it? Is there any other avenues, or what might be some of your favorite aspects of filmmaking?
This might be vague, but I'll try to answer it as best as I can.
Yeah.
I just love the overall process of having an idea in your mind and then just seeing it come to life on screen.
Yeah.
But if you're going, and that's probably a pretty typical filmmaker answer, but I'm gonna go another step further, and there's also just this intense collaborative spirit inside filmmaking that if you get the right group of people together and they all have kind of a, they believe in the project, they all have a similar kind of vision for where they want to see the project, and having, I personally, I like the beginning and middle stages. We'll just say before production and during production. Those are my favorite times. Yeah. After the thing is done, I'm like, I don't want to touch it anymore. Somebody else do the rest. But because I put so much time and effort into the planning and then the actual production aspect of it. But in those two phases especially, there's just that huge sense of collaboration that happens that I just love so much.
So you said you'd prefer to hand off editing. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Gotcha.
It's not necessarily that I don't like editing. It's that I know that there are much more creative editors who will make it so much better than I can.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I love the process. I happen to like editing a whole lot. I think it's one of the more exciting spots, but it's different for every filmmaker.
Absolutely.
I'm really into, I just like editing because I get to see the things get put together like a puzzle and it just works out really well, and it's that, to me, it's one of the more satisfying parts of filmmaking. But I also understand what you're saying. You get the collaborative aspect and you get to see, you kind of see that already when you're really into script writing and then you're into being on set in production.
Right.
And then you get to see the on-set production, that script turn into shots and turn into audio and turn into acting and lighting and visuals and just beautiful pieces of work. And so I understand what you're saying. You kind of see it from the script writing to production. I kind of see it from production to editing, and I kind of do script writing because I have to. Now, I like coming up with stories, but I'm not a good script writer. But yeah, is there? I know on a past couple films you've kind of helped me out being behind camera. Is that a place you like, or what area on production do you find yourself enjoying the most out of your experience since you've worked with me, which has been quite a few years?
Yes. So I actually do really enjoy being as part of the, I'm going to just say, camera team. I've been, over the past year especially, I've been on a lot of indie sets around town where the DP never touched the camera and he was just giving orders for all of us to do because he was just like that good and knew exactly what he wanted and was able to entrust us in order to do that. And I learned a lot doing that. It was when I had an internship at a camera rental house, and they brought me on set with them a few times and had me help out. So that was really fun. And I learned a lot about cameras and stuff, but I don't necessarily see camera as a long-term place for me. I definitely feel like I thrive more in story development and figuring out like the best way to tell a story. And honestly, one of the reasons why I wanted to get more involved with the camera department is so that when I do get to that point in my life where I am directing all the time, hopefully that, that's the goal. The goal for that. So I've lost my train of thought.
You're good.
It was, oh yes. So basically the ultimate goal of me being on the camera department was so that I would be able to better communicate with the camera department as a director, because I think that really special things can happen when you as the director and your director of photography are just meshing and on the same level, and you're able to be like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, I know what you mean. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Joshua, do you think she mentioned something? What do you you and you also mentioned this on the podcast? What you said, a lot of people want to get into filmmaking and become directors.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this, Natalie, as well. But what do you think? I mean, what you describe your thoughts on directing again a little bit.
Okay. Before I say anything, I'm going to generally just say this. When I said this, I wasn't thinking of one specific person.
Yeah.
So it can be
generalizing.
different. Yeah, it's different per person. I'm not saying that you're like this or not, but what I was saying is a lot of filmmakers, especially when I went to school, the first thing they would say to cop out was like, I want to be a director. That's my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them aren't the director has to lead everybody. Most of them don't have the leadership ability to be a good director.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine to be like just a camera person or like a grip or a sound person. It's fine to have these very crucial jobs that are, if without them, a film can't be made.
Yeah.
So they're just as important as the director, but everybody kind of just says, I want to be a director because that's what they hear and that's what they want. They just say that as a cop-out.
It's the job that people know most about next to the actors.
Yeah, and it's technically kind of the most important part.
Yeah.
So
in some fashion.
Yeah, in some fashion.
Honestly,
so,
with indie films, I mean, you know this, it's everyone's important. I'm curious to hear what's the interest in you to be a director, you know what I mean? And what are some of the skills that you've learned that directing, in order to be a director, you have to know how to do? And like what are your thoughts on being a good director? You know, I'm not sure if you had this, and I'll ask you this in a second about the backstory of how you got interested in filmmaking, but I'm interested to know, did you start wanting to be a director or did you find yourself in wanting to be, you know?
I think I started off wanting to be one, but I wanted to be one because I wanted to write scripts. And as a script writer, I feel protective over what I write. And I was like, I just want to do it all. Which is kind of the, arrogant, not too much out of film school mindset, if I'm just being honest. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of truth in that. A lot of people just kind of blindly go in wanting to be directors. Like, I know people that I went to school with who either just graduated or haven't graduated yet, who started off, wanting to be directors, maybe because they didn't know what they wanted to do exactly, and they were just like, director, I guess. But now, like, some of them are, like, they want to be producers, which is great because we don't have enough producers.
For real. And a lot of people are confused about what a producer does,
Exactly.
We have a video on the channel called The Difference Between a Director and a Producer, and people are curious. It's our most viewed video on this channel. People are looking that up specifically. And so what do you think, in your own experience, what do you think are some of the skills specifically a director needs to have,
The director needs to have the vision, and they have to have, the leadership ability and the storytelling ability, because, like, I think of, if we're going to do, like, director versus producer, like, the director is the idealistic, visionary, let's go to the sky with this thing, and then the producer is more realistic, like, hey, we don't have money to do that. Come down a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, I think director and I think vision.
Yeah.
With a rainbow and some shooting stars.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Oh, I hear you. Yes. I think the director has to definitely have the vision, because the film is ultimately the vision of how the director sees the story, And if you happen to write the story, then it becomes your baby, like you said. Like, it's really hard to hand that over. So writers are unique people and being able to just give their script to people, and directors are often maybe more times than not, people get upset at them because they didn't direct it in a way that's someone else's vision. But it's supposed to be their vision. It's what they're hired to do, you know.
I want to give my 2 cents with this writer thing, because it's interesting that you say you are always nervous to give your story to someone else, and John Mark is that same way.
Yeah. Especially
Especially with even Dying the Leaves. He was so nervous to say, do with it what you want.
He was nervous to watch the film.
Yeah, because he didn't, his mind, he created this story, and he's had to play it out in his mind in a certain way. And are you going to do that justice? Are you going to...
Which I know with some aspects I didn't. You know?
I mean, we didn't have the money, but
not even just the money. It's just like I saw the scene a completely different way, and when you try to communicate as much as you can and be like, hey, is this really important that you have it this way, or can I take some freedom and create it in the way that I see? And sometimes they're cool with it, sometimes they're not, sometimes they don't realize they're not until you're done. So yeah, that's kind of, I mean, we didn't have any arguments or anything, but John Mark definitely experienced that a little bit with Dying of the Leaves. I'm interested to know, what was the beginning of you, Natalie, learning that you were into video production or filmmaking, or whatever got you into that initially? You know what I mean? And if you have if it's a story, go ahead and tell it. I'm curious.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a story, but it's not a very exciting story.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you know, like, I was one of those kids who would like play with my dad's camcorder and stuff and do really stupid stuff with it. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I was just like, yeah, that's cool. It wasn't really until high school, and I had to make practical decisions for myself, because I always grew up wanting to write novels.
Okay.
And so there were a few different novels, let's be realistic, that I attempted to write throughout childhood, and, you know, each maybe like span of 3 years, it was something different. So like in middle school, I dedicated myself to this one novel, and then in high school, I dedicated myself to this other one, and, you know, none of them ever went anywhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was young and inexperienced, and I was an idealistic dreamer, which are, you know, all good things. But it just kind of came to a point, I think my sophomore year, where I was like, I want to go to college for something, but I don't, like, it would be stupid to go to college to get a creative writing degree, because what can you actually do with that? And so one day it just kind of hit me. I was like, I could write a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, movies bring in audiences, arguably more audiences than books. So this is a very practical decision for me.
Yeah.
And if I go to school to learn how to, you know, make a film or something, nobody's telling me I can't write novels too.
Yeah.
At this point,
sure.
I've pretty much dropped the whole novel thing, because I feel like even just my writing style as I was young, and of course, like, who has good writing when they're young? But, you know, let's be realistic. But, you know, the imagination was there, and I always had more of a visual writing style anyway. So still figuring out to make the transition from manuscript to screenplay was difficult, but I feel like in terms of things that I was actually describing, it didn't really change that much, other than the fact that you don't put in quotation marks except in certain situations, or, you know, but you don't have to worry about extra sensory details like, oh, what is this person smelling? What is this person tasting? Which gets really, really mundane when you're writing a novel, in my opinion, whereas you can just focus on what people see and hear, which is honestly what I think is more interesting anyway. So,
yeah.
So when I was a senior, I think, in high school, I, like, squeezed my way into our school's, like news team. So that was like the first time I ever touched a professional camera, which was kind of cool. But
What camera was it? Do you remember?
oh goodness, it was this clunky looking Sony. Not quite an FS7.
Was it?
Beneath an FS7, but I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Was it like digital, like DV tape, or like?
It was digital.
Okay.
Digital. Yeah. Okay, so you got on the news at, you said your high school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what did you decide in high school, or did you decide before that when you were like, hey, I think maybe filmmaking is a better option than novel writing? Was it at that point that you decided, I'm going to go to film school, I'm going to get into this?
Yeah, I think I decided I think I like officially decided probably junior or senior year. And I started making like little strange-o sketches on my phone and my iPad because my resources were limited.
Yeah.
And they were more or less, like, they were kind of like YouTube style, me trying to be a funny dork than anything of cinematic excellence. So,
Yeah.
and then, you know, it's just kind of interesting how the interest kind of grew over time, though. A lot of people, especially that in my circle now, don't really know that I went to Bible college and tried to get like a Bible degree and a cinema degree at the same time. And I think it was a good call for the first couple years of school, but overall, like as time went on and I think my love and desire to grow as a filmmaker, as that just deepened and grew inside me, I started to realize that maybe I wasn't in the best place for that. And so I decided to move to Nashville and go to film school here full time. So
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty excited when I heard you were going to Nashville in order to get a better education for filmmaking. If you were just going to Nashville because you were done with CIU and didn't have a plan, I'd be like, dang it, what's she doing? But no, when I heard you were going because you were getting more serious and you didn't think CIU necessarily had the best system set up for you, I was like, that's a good call, and I'm proud of her. So, I wanted to ask, what if someone was to come up to you and is possibly interested in filmmaking, what would you say to them? Like, how would you even be able to distinguish if that person is a good fit for this kind of work? You know, I mean, you have a good amount of experience, especially in Nashville and stuff. So what do you think you would say to someone like that?
yeah, I think at first I would say, that's awesome, let's talk about it. Because I love talking to people about it. But I think it's important not to shy away from the fact that it is a ton of work. Mm-hmm. And you have to be willing to put in the hours in order to even see something reminiscent of what you originally imagined come to life. You have to be a team player. You know, if you like to ride solo, I don't really know if this is the right career path for you, because you're going to have to work with people a lot. You're going to have to work with people that maybe you don't always mesh with, and people that, you know, will see things differently than you and who will irritate you at times. But you have to know how to keep the peace and, you know, just remember that you're all here with a common goal to create something awesome. So
You've helped us on a couple of projects, and we would right now consider ourselves like independent filmmakers. What do you think, for independent filmmakers out there, what do you think they should do to get started, or just even, not because you kind of just said that, but just for independent filmmakers to help them out? Or do you have any ideas on just
like maybe what they need?
Yeah, what they need.
Yeah. Like what would you say is that an indie filmmaker needs, or what does the industry need right now from your opinion, you know?
Okay. I could take this a couple different directions, so we'll see where it lands. If we're going to take it from a literal perspective, actually, well, I'll start with this. Like, one of the most recurring pieces of advice that I have gotten from other more noteworthy independent filmmakers in the area is to just go out and shoot something. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, if you don't have you don't have to have a Sony FS7 or an Alexa Mini to go out and shoot something. You can just take your phone, because phone cameras are pretty dang good nowadays.
Yeah. I use them as my third camera when I'm shooting a wedding,
Like, just go out and do something with your phone. Find, just go out, like, try to get some shots of something cool. If I'm I'm doing freaking director hands right now, and I don't mean to. But yeah, just go out, find something interesting, try to find a new angle on something. Another thing that I'm just regurgitating things that people have told me because they're just so insightful, and I really try to take these things to heart. So I hope that, I can just pass on this wisdom that somebody else has already given to me. You could argue that every story has already been told, but you just have to figure out how to put your own spin on it. You have to figure out how to put your own style onto it, interject your voice into it, and then you've got something new. You can be like, I want to wait until I come up with something original. Well, I don't know that there's anything original left, to be honest. We've been telling stories since the beginning of time. Everything is based off of something that has already been done, but what makes them so interesting is how we put our voices into it and how we share our own stories. And again, just finding that little thing that wasn't there before and putting it in, and suddenly the whole thing has changed and it's a totally new concept, and it's awesome.
Yeah. So would you say that what the indie filmmaking world needs is that person's perspective? Is that person's ideas?
Yes, you need your perspective and your ideas.
When you said that, I was thinking when someone tries to come up with something fresh and new and something no one's thought of before, you get things like Sharknado.
It's so true, though.
Which is kind of you're right. We're running out of ideas, but we just need a fresh perspective. That's really cool. I was interested in thinking back to, I'm sure it would take a while for you to talk about all the things you've done since we last worked together. But I am interested to think of, or to ask you, what might be the most influential project you've worked on?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because besides what I've seen you post on social media, I have no idea what productions you've been working on, unless you've made it readily known about where to find those.
Man, okay, I think I'm going to talk about one of my student films, at least first.
Okay.
It's a little film called Playtime. It's on YouTube. Go check it out, please. It's fun, and I based the film off of a game that my brother and I played when we were children. So, and it's about these 3 spies, and they're going to face their arch enemy. It's just a fun little short film that I made for my first directing class, and it was the first thing that I both wrote and directed. And at the same time, it was also my first time directing. And so I think going into the whole process, it was just kind of like, I think I was a little worried that I was going to be in over my head, oh, what if this is something that I've thought that I wanted to do and then it turns out I suck at it. Like there's always that fear of
which at the beginning you do. You always
Yes.
suck at it.
Yes. Like obviously this film is not perfect, but even just showing it to people and getting feedback from my professor, I was like, okay, well, maybe I can do this. And even just biting, and I had to do it for a class. So obviously I was under like timeline constraints and anything, but if you just say to yourself, I'm going to do this. And, again, even though I had to do it for a class, I guess I could have just not done it if I was, that kind of person. But, you're walked through the process, you write your script, you break down your script, which is more of a producer thing. But it was just the basic directing class, so we didn't get assigned a producer or anything. So we did the breakdowns and things ourselves. We storyboarded difficult scenes. We made shot lists for our directors of photography, which is usually something that you collaborate on. But again, because it's like a class, you learn every aspect yourself, so that if you had to do it yourself, you could, instead of just being fully reliant on other people, which is good to rely on other people, but also it's good to know what they're doing so that if you have to, you can do it yourself. And I think just going through it all, and once it was edited and there was a nice little bow put on it, and I even reached out to one of my friends in the music department, and so the whole thing is like all original score and everything. So I tried to go all out so that I could be fully exposed. And once I was fully exposed, I was like, okay, I can totally do this again. And so I think just the initial, just bite the bullet and do it and go through the process and learn everything. And you're going to screw up. But learn from when you screw up. And then it's going to turn out to be a video that you wrote and you directed and you put all of this work into, and you did it. Now go do it again.
Yeah, that's a big thing with filmmaking. It's you're never gonna be good at it until you've had quite a few years of just doing it constantly.
Yeah.
Even the things that you think would be easy, like lighting, like I can't even figure out lighting still. I mean, I know quite a bit about lighting, but when it comes to creative lighting, there's so much stuff out there. There's always stuff to be learned. It's not a well formatted just process you go down and figure it out. Everything's different. I mean, everything is changing, technology's changing, and so you're just never going to be good at it unless you just go through it. And so those tend to be, even though they might be some of our lowest quality work, they tend to be the things we learn the most from.
Absolutely.
Any final questions, Joshua, before we wrap this podcast up?
No, I think we kind of covered some of the basic stuff. I mean, we could have talked about projects that we've worked on a little bit more, but
I think we'll probably have you on again if you're cool with that, Natalie.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
But in the meantime, we'll finish off this podcast. Thank you so much, Natalie, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you for listening, the audience. We hope that you found this enjoyable. We hope you found this interesting. If you're into filmmaking, leave it in the comments. Let us know. Ask us a question. We'll try to answer it as best we can. Or we'll just send a screenshot to Natalie and have her answer it. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you don't know, we have all of these audio podcasts on Spotify, not just YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify, go over to YouTube and subscribe. But follow us on Spotify and YouTube. And we also have a midnight special, audio only, long form on Friday night called the Midnight Special. Each week. So we come out with 3 podcasts a week. We really appreciate you listening to this one, and we hope that you will join us in the future for more. And give us a like if you found this podcast, good information, helpful, or entertaining.